what makes a great villain. So today I'm going to be talking about what I feel are the qualities of a great villain and what makes a great villain so great, so to speak. I feel as though there are mainly 5 points of what make a great villain. I'm going to start off with number 1. Definitely I say impact that the villain has had on the series as a whole. Depending on what he's done, I feel as though it attributes to who he is and what type of villain he is. Whether he's robbed the bank or whether he's destroyed the entire world. You know, it really depends on what he's done, but I feel as though the bigger the impact the villain has had on the series as a whole, on the story as a whole, definitely is something that comes into factor when you're looking at what a great villain is. You know, say for example you take a villain, and this villain is a small-time crook, and you know, he killed a couple people, but then you have this other villain that he just detonated a city. You look at it, okay, this guy has had a much greater impact. This guy is just a small-time crook. This one detonated an entire city. So impact to the story and overall, just the amount of damage he has done is definitely one of the factors that I take into consideration when I think of what a great villain truly is. Another one is the motive. The motivation, what triggers him, what makes him keep going in his villainy is really something that I feel as though is important as well in becoming a great villain and what a great villain is. Say for example, this guy, he just started shooting up an entire city of people. He just went on a shooting spree and it's like, yo, this guy, he killed so many people, he's a nut job or whatever. And then you find out that the reason he's doing this is because his grandmother didn't give him cookies this morning. You're like, he did all this over that. So it really depends on the motive, whether or not this character can be actually credible as far as like, okay, he's doing this for a purpose. When you look at it, let's just say that same guy, you find out that he was raped when he was younger, he was tortured, and he's just sick of society. While that is still not an excuse to go and kill a ton of people, is a lot more of a reasonable reason to do those things than grandma didn't give me cookies this morning. Level of threat. What can this guy accomplish? What can he do? How strong is he? That's definitely something that is a big factor as well, because let's just say the hero is a power level of 10,000 and the villain is a power level of 5,000. He ain't gonna be able to do much if he can't really, you know, accomplish his goal because his level of threat isn't there. So I definitely say a level of threat is a big factor as well. You take, for example, a level of threat, Aizen, Hogyoku, God mode right there. He's an immortal practically. So you look at that, level of threat is definitely an important thing because it gives a reason of, okay, we need to fear this guy. This guy is too strong. This guy is, how are we going to get past him? And level of threat is definitely an important factor. Longevity. How long has the villain been around? How long has he been planning? Did he just show up right now and start killing people? Did he just show up a day ago? How long has the villain been around and how long has he been planning his plot of pretty much what he's going to do? I think longevity is very important as well in giving the whole story some fluidity of, okay, the villain has been around this entire time and he's been slowly creeping away. That's why when you look at Bleach, Soul Society arc is like, he's been around this entire time, Aizen, and we didn't even know he was the main villain until the end. So the longevity played in his favor. Last but not least, the final factor in what I consider a great villain is the cool factor. How cool is he? Because sometimes, yeah, this guy can be a great villain, but he's just some nerdy guy and he's like, oh, I gotta blow my nose, oh. But you can also have the same guy that he's like, don't talk to me at all. So, you know, the cool factor, while it isn't the most important, while it's the least important, I definitely say cool factor definitely plays in making a villain a great villain. So with all that being said, when you look at such villains, let's just say Sensui from Yu Yu Hakusho, he will cover every criteria of this list. For example, impact. He pretty much ripped a hole in between dimensions and let demons come out from Demon World to start destroying the human world. Motivation. Humanity pretty much disgusted him and he had to rethink his entire life and his entire value system until the point where he came up with this crazy solution. Level of threat. He was an S-class worth of power as far as the chart goes, so he was a very big threat to the point where he even took out Yusuke Urameshi. Longevity. He was the spirit detective prior to Yusuke Urameshi, therefore he's been around for a while, we just didn't see him. And cool factor. I mean, can you deny that Sensui is cool? Come on, he was badass, 7 personalities, a psycho. That dude had the cool factor. So that's definitely an example of a great villain. When people like to point out Toby and his villainy and how he's not a great villain, he has some of the characteristics of a great villain, but there's some shortcomings where it kind of takes away from the powerfulness of him being a villain. Because he has the impact, the things that he did, you know, starting the 4th Great Shinobi War, the attack on the village with the Nine Tails, those were some very impactful moments. Same thing with the level of threat. He summoned the Jubi, he had the Nine Tails, he did a lot of big things where pretty much people were cowering in fear. Longevity, he's been around the entire series in the shadows, watching, waiting, and planning. And the cool factor, prior to him taking off the mask, he definitely had this very ominous and mysterious vibe that was like, yo, who is this guy? This guy is pretty bad. badass. We know what happens after he takes off the mask, though. And the motive is the number one thing where it kind of cheapened him, where people were like, the motive, Rin. Well, I feel as though he had several different motives. The main one that Kishimoto kept on focusing on is the Rin factor, and that's why I feel as though it cheapened the character from becoming a great villain. Let's just say his motive would have been that he felt that he wanted to change the shinobi world for better, even if it means that he has to cause destruction and chaos to get that peace. But the way Kishimoto zeroed in on the Rin factor is what definitely cheapened the character, but nonetheless doesn't make him a terrible villain, but it stops him from definitely being a great villain. And that's the main message I guess I wanted to get through with this video, is that a villain, in order to be a great villain, sometimes he can have all the characteristics of a great villain except one, and that one characteristic can be twisted so much to the point where it kind of devalues the character as a villain as a whole. Let me know what you guys think. First of all, what do you think makes a great villain? Sometimes it doesn't take all of this. Sometimes a villain can be great just being black and white. He's evil, he wants to have some fun killing people, he wants to be a dominant mafioso kind of guy. It doesn't always take all these criteria to make a great villain, but I feel as though a villain that is in depth, a villain that has motives, a villain that has logic and reasoning is definitely a lot greater than a flat villain. That's all I have for this discussion. Thanks for watching. Hope you enjoyed. Thumbs up for great villains. I might do a top 10 great villains in the future. If you want to see that, also let me know. I'm ForneverWorld, and as always, people, have an awesome day.